Praise Yahuwah, brothers and sisters. Praise Yahuwah. He is so worthy of all praises, and we praise our Elohim. Baruch are all those who revere Yahuwah and walk in his ways. Today, I want to talk a little bit about our walk and how sometimes we find ourselves in places and in situations and we don't always understand how we got there. So it's almost a continuation of the generational curses audio that I did a few days ago. So we're going to read in Psalms 34, beginning with verse 19. Many evils confront the consistently righteous, but Yahuwah delivers him out of them all. The eyes of Yahuwah are toward the uncompromisingly righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. When the righteous cry for help, Yahuwah hears and delivers them out of all their distresses and troubles. So we used this verse in another audio, and it was mentioned that verse 19, many evils confront the consistently righteous. I like using the Amplified Classic Version because they do amplify the scriptures. And so I like how the way they write, they translate the righteous, they put in consistently righteous. And that is a key word. We look at outward appearance a lot of times, and, Yahushua told us that. So we look at that, and we ought not to, but even if we do, we look at the consistency of someone who is claiming to be righteous, consistently righteous. Those are the ones who are confronted with many evils. The King James says many afflictions. So we're going to now read in the book of Numbers, chapter 21. It says, when the Canaanite king of Arad, who dwelt in the south, the Negeb, heard that Yesharel was coming by the way of Atharium, the route traveled by the spies sent out by Moses, he fought against Yesharel and took some of them captive. And Yesharel vowed a vow to Yahuwah and said, if you will indeed deliver this people into our hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. And Elohim hearkened to Yesharel and gave over the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities. And the name of that place was called Hormah, a banned or devoted thing. And they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way to the Red Sea or the Reed Sea to go around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient. They became depressed and much discouraged because of the trials of the way. And the people spoke against Yahuwah Elohim and against Moses. Why have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? And for there is no bread, neither is any water, and we loathe this light, contemptible, unsubstantial manna. Then Yahuwah sent fiery, burning serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and many Israelites died. Many children of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against Yahuwah Elohim and against you. Beseech him for us. Pray to him that he may take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people. And Elohim said to Moses, make a fiery serpent of bronze and set it on a pole. And everyone who is bitten when he looks at it shall live. And Moses made a serpent of bronze and put it on a pole. And if a serpent had bitten any man, when he looked to the serpent of bronze, attentively, expectantly, with a steady and absorbing gaze, he lived. And the Israelites journeyed on and encamped on at Oboth. Now their words are their words irritated him. The murmuring and complaining. And so often we're told not to murmur and complain. Even Saul wrote about it in the Philippians, and maybe another time too, that to stop murmuring and complaining. And why should we murmur and complain when we know that we have one that we can take anything to? He perfects those things that concerns us. But often our words are what open the doors to a lot of calamities. And the book of Proverbs tells us about our word, the power that's in our tongue. There's depth and life in our tongue. And so we have to be really mindful of the things that we're saying, even when we're going through something. Job is a good example. He would not curse Elohim, as his wife consulted and told him to do. He would not do it. We cannot do it. It opens the door. And and then Yahushua told us what we speak comes from our heart. So it really turns out to be a heart issue. So I have a question for you. What if those serpents were always there and the people never thought about their existence? Or if they did they realize that Elohim was keeping them safe from them? Holding them back from harming them? What if in our lives there are constant close by dangers that we have no idea of until something happens? And then to think that it only occurred because of something we did, or that thing would have been kept at bay. After much warning or correction, and definitely much patience with us, Father has to step back and remove the covering, because in spiritual justice, the tempter and the evil one, he has the right to us because we put him in the place of master. We chose his way over the way of truth and righteousness. We deviated from our instructions. Remember, Baruch are all those who revere Yahuwah. We respect him and fear him and honor him, and we walk in his ways. Father attempts to protect us from spiritual harm every day because he knows of the activities of the evil one. He tried to protect Adam and Eve because he knew of the enemy's plan to trip man to get all his authority and dominion. Abba Yah's instructions are clear. They were clear then and they're clear now. When we, like Adam and Eve, get tripped up, it's because our reasoning got us there. See, our reasoning gets us into things we can't even see. This opens doors to tests and trials, and sometimes into spiritual depths that might take years to recover from. So we cannot, or I should say I cannot, allow the adversary to become ruler. And yet, I'm like everyone else, still struggling, have successes and rejoice, and then something else. It's just always a test or a trial, because we read in Psalms 34, many evils confront the consistently righteous. The enemy is now justified to injure us or even our loved ones, depending on what the test or trial is. We must understand that reasoning is the tool the enemy uses to dig up our treasures and our gifts that we have in following Yah's instructions. He got Eve to reason, and then Adam must have also reasoned something to decide to side with her instead of standing on what he knew was right. Proverbs 4 reads, "Hear, my sons, the instructions of a father, and pay attention in order to gain and to know intelligent discernment, comprehension, and interpretation of spiritual matters." So let me read it again. "Hear, my sons, the instructions of a father, and pay attention in order to gain and to know intelligent discernment, comprehension, and interpretation of spiritual matters. For I give you good doctrine, what is to be received. Do not forsake my teaching." Matthew 7. Yahushua is speaking to the people. "Reach a settlement quickly with your adversary while you're on the way with him, or your adversary will hand you over to the judge to the officer, and you will be thrown into prison." Now this part comes from the portion of Matthew 5 that I took this from. It was where Yahushua was talking about anger. Like he says, if you lay your gift down, if you're coming to offer a gift, you're at the altar and go and get things right with your brother. it was in that area. Um, yeah, I see this verse in my life to mean that if I'm not swift to run to my Father, the just judge, to acknowledge my wrongdoing and change my ways, the accuser will go to the Father and tell on me because he's the accuser. Not that the Father doesn't already know everything. Now my Father is just in all his ways and all his dealings, and he has to hear this. I am to revere my Father's position and his just ways, and not put him in a place that he has to rule in the adversary's favor, because I went against my teachings and expectations as a child of the righteous judge. The adversary always looks for us to cross the line by any measure so he can run accuse us. Looking for that little, 30 seconds of an inch, the smallest measurement. He's looking. He can see when that measure of a toe goes over the line. He is critiquing us all the time. So in this verse, the way I see it in my life, I see it, I see reaching a settlement with him to mean run to the throne of my advocate Yahushua to obtain favor and compassion so I can strip the enemy of his right to me. A similar verse in Luke 12 reads, verse 57, and why do you not judge what is just and personally decide what is right? So why don't I judge what is just and personally decide what is right? Then as you go with your accuser before a magistrate on the way, make a diligent effort to settle and be free of him, lest he drag you to the judge and the judge turn you over to the officer and the officer put you in prison. So, not that I'm really dealing with the accuser in our walk. We don't go to him and make, any type of deal or anything with him. No, I'm going to run to my Father, who is the righteous judge, who has the final say in every matter in my life. And I'm going to go to him, and he judges justly. Okay. He knows our hearts. He knows our thoughts. He knows why we're where we're at. He knows our past. He knows, the motives. He knows all the things. So he judges righteously. If I run to him immediately, then that can be erased, right? That can be blotted out. And he has set up, listen, we got it good. Our Father is the righteous judge. Then our attorney, our advocate, is Yahushua, his Ben, who knows all things. He is just as just and righteous as the Father. And he has shed his blood for the remission of our sins. We are covered with the blood. Even in Exodus, they had, the Father told Moses to instruct the people to kill the lamb, put the blood on the lintels and the doorpost so that the death angel would pass over them. It is the same for us today. So we run swiftly and we get things taken care of. Okay. And we should be doing that probably all day long. If you're like me, several times a day. Unfortunately, I'm ashamed to say it. I humbly and truly and sincerely am ashamed to say it. Cartoons give a good analogy when they show, good on one shoulder talking to a person and bad on the other shoulder talking in the other ear of that person. They do a good job because that's sometimes how it is. But once we know what thus saith Yahuwah, our Father, we should stick with that. The serpents were always there in the wilderness. So let us be mindful of knowing that there are serpents in our walk on this straight and narrow path. Sin and murmuring pushed away their protection. By murmuring, the serpents were released. So sad. It's very sad. Our Father has equipped us with traveling instructions and directions to provide us with safe travels. Tehillim 34, verses 12 through 15 says, we can learn the remedy if we're ones who are desiring a long and good life and wanting to please the Father. It says, keep our tongue from evil and our lips from speaking deceit. Depart from evil and do good. Seek and inquire for and crave peace and pursue. Go after it. So keep our tongue from evil, that's murmuring and complaining, and our lips from speaking deceit. Depart from evil and do good. Seek, inquire for, and crave peace, shalom, and pursue and go after it. James 4, verse 7 and 8. Submit yourselves, therefore, to Elohim. Resist the evil one, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to Yahuwah Elohim, and he will draw nigh to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. You know, when I was reading this earlier, I said, yeah, a lot of us say, we're not sinners. Well, can we say that we're not double-minded? Okay, we don't live in the nature of sin, but we do still fall short, right? And most of us, many of us, some have been delivered of it. They're that perfect man. You know, they have their tongue in control, because James says that's a perfect man who can control his tongue, right? And one who's not double-minded. We can't expect to receive anything from the Father in James 1 if we're double-minded. And yet we must be double-minded, or we wouldn't be from time to time allowing the enemy to rule in our lives by causing us to reason like he did with Eve. He knows that you won't die if you eat of this fruit, you know. And so he comes to us with different things. We can't let him rule. We can't let him have us reasoning when in Proverbs 4, let me see if I can find that again. He says that the Father says he gives good instructions. Good instructions. And so we are to hear the instructions of a Father and pay attention in order to gain and to know intelligent discernment, comprehension, and interpretation of spiritual matters. For I give you good doctrine. Receive it. Do not forsake my teaching. So let's be encouraged and remember that serpents are not always seen, especially if we're not looking with spiritual eyes. Because the serpents were never seen by the people, our brothers and sisters in the wilderness, they didn't know of the danger. In our lives, we do not always see every danger. Things turn out best for those who make the best of how things turn out. So when something does happen, we keep the right spirit. We yet praise him. We love him. We know that he wants only good for us. We know that we win in him. We know that we're going to be constantly confronted, because the enemy is confronting us with evil, with tests and trials. Because why? We're the consistently righteous. We're set apart. We're striving to live as the Father would have us live. So we keep our attitude, our spirit right, our hearts right, in whatever we're going through. The children in the wilderness they often accused him, and they had little to no trust in him. They didn't. When I said didn't, I meant they didn't know him. This is why we must know him. We must know his character. Always remembering that we win in Yahuwah and that everything changes with Yahuwah. We're Baruch when we revere him, when we walk in his ways. But understand that tests and trials are going to come. For whatever the reason, could be something that we did, could be just a test and trial, then enemies accusing us of something. And like Job and like Abraham, they passed. Let us pass. Let us know in our hearts that we win in Yahuwah when we learn to look to the hills from which cometh our help. When we realize that he does not leave us nor forsake us. He does not deny us of his promises. If we are sincerely striving to walk that straight and narrow way. Because that straight, S-T-R-A-I-T, is an indication of the challenges and the struggles in our path. So be encouraged. Be encouraged. Know that there are things lurking and the Father is keeping them from us. And if we fall into calamity, He's with us. If we know to look to Him and to thank Him and to trust Him and rely on Him. In Yahuwah's name, I close this out. I'm encouraged in Him, and I will see you next time. All praises to Him. All praises to Yahuwah Elohim, the just judge, the righteous judge, our Father, the one who promises to be with us through the water and through the fire, and in all things. He will never forsake us. If we love Him and keep His commandments. Praise Yah.